friends. Welcome to Whoop with Jen. I don't record these in sequence, so I don't know yet what the previous episode is, but I'm so excited that you all are here today, and you are in for a treat because it's not just me talking. So whoop whoop, we have my friend Trisha here, who I met, I think I met you almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And Trisha is here because we were meant to meet. As you all know, maybe or not, depending on the order that I publish these episodes, I am a real estate agent, former accountant, and my colleague, Blake, was doing an open house, and Trisha came in with her daughter. And he thought that based on what he observed, that we were people that needed to meet and have a connection. And he introduced us. And he selflessly said, if she buys a house, I think you're the one that needs to help her buy a house. And I just love the way that the world, and karma kind of introduces souls into each other. So welcome, Trisha. I'm so happy that you're here.
Having me. I appreciate it.
I love you so much and your family. I've only gotten to meet you and your husband and Kylie and is it Shannon?
Yeah, Shannon.
But I would like you to tell us your story because it's amazing and you've had a tough time, especially relocating from California.
Yes.
And why don't you just kind of start us off with who you are?
I'm Trisha, and let's see. I've been on my special needs journey for over 29 years. So
almost 3 decades.
Yes,
I just got chills.
Yes, it's been a long, long journey. We moved from California. The idea was for us to start looking at. We were striking out, and Kylie was getting kicked out of programs. She's already.
How long ago was that?
We moved 3 years. 2.5 years ago. We moved in June of 2016.
Okay, so she was in her mid to late 20s.
Yes, and we were really struggling with her there to keep. Once you leave the school system at 22, day programs, community involvement programs really filter off, and those who have challenging behaviors or don't fit traditionally in a little box that Kylie can't sit around and be in a one room or a couple rooms for 6 hours a day. She needs exercise, she needs activity, she needs to be busy, or the behaviors ensue. She'll let you know.
So let's go back a little bit.
Yes.
And that she is your second child.
Yes. Kylie is my. I was married and I have a son from a previous marriage, and then I remarried, and I have 3 daughters. Kylie is the oldest, and then I have 2 daughters.
And at what point did you notice that Kylie might be different? I think you mentioned when you were pregnant.
Kylie was diagnosed at a little over 2, and so we had gone to my husband was staying home after I had her. I ended up getting a job, and my husband decided we did not want to have our kids in daycare. And this is way before my son was starting kindergarten. Kylie was newborn, and I was commuting to the city in San Francisco. And it's like, okay, so my husband stayed home, and he went to the park a lot, and he was very involved, and probably at a little over, she walked, traditionally at a year, and he started noticing when he was at the park that she really had no interest in any other kids. She liked to play under the equipment and play in the sand.
Her safe space.
Yeah, she had a safe space. Actually, she used to go to my mom and dad's house, and they had this shelf between the dining room and the kitchen, and she used to climb under it and sit there. That was she. So we started noticing she looked for places to be under things. She got under the kitchen table. There was a bar in my parents'. She got under that and play. She hung out and did stuff under things. She liked to be under things. She didn't necessarily use her hands. If she was in the stroller, she put her hands under her legs. So we were starting to know. So we took her to the doctor, our pediatrician, and he said, well, she definitely's connected to you. I see, he said, it's kind of early. And I said, but she's not making sounds. She makes babbly sounds.
And she was 2?
No, this is probably a year.
Oh, at a year. Okay.
So we just started noticing. And he said, don't compare, because my son, from the day he was born, I mean,
typical in every way, met every milestone.
He was riding a bike. I mean, he climbed furniture. He did not sit on furniture. He was super active. And very articulate, talked. He spoke actually very, very well and I could get into that.
Kindergartner. So your son's awesome.
Yeah.
So he's the person that you're comparing.
Yes, and
Kylie
we're like,
to.
and he said, try not to do that. Don't do that. And if I went further back,
and this is good advice for all parents.
Yes, and
don't compare your children.
Don't compare your
against
children.
each other.
Everybody develops at their own pace. But if I went really back, I'm adopted. I have 2 brothers.
Biological or adoptive?
No, we're all adopted, separate families. But when I was the first. And my mom, I was very neurotypical, very active, very talkative and asked questions all the time. Then she had my brother and then when my other brother was adopted and he became that typical, my middle brother, it really started to show. If my brother was he never had a diagnosis. I mean, dyslexic. But he had way more issues.
Back then, nobody would want a diagnosis of anything.
No,
right? No one wants
and
to
my
be
mom
different.
couldn't get help, resources. They put him through school into 2nd grade, and he couldn't read or write. And it's like they were just passing him. He did kindergarten twice.
And at that point, they called him kind of stupid
because I retarded, and it was just
and that's
really
a whole other pod, by the way, on the R word.
Yes, it is.
I hate that word.
I do too.
And I'm going to introduce society into other words.
Intellectually disabled.
Well, and I just I was slow growing up. I was an August birthday, and my parents enrolled me in kindergarten when I was barely 5. So I was emotionally, socially immature. And I was left-handed, which back then
my brother was left-handed.
Yeah, like in the mid to late 70s was unheard of. And I remember being in 3rd grade cursive writing class. Isn't that ridiculous? I had a cursive writing class.
Wow.
And I remember Mrs. Patterson, she's probably dead now, saying, everyone turn your papers at a slight angle to I don't know if it's the right or the left. She's like, except for Jenny Gulick, who's different.
Wow, random.
I mean, that's bullying. Like today, she'd be called out.
Yeah.
And I could have posted hateful things about her on social media. But anyway, it's a different time and place. So your brother,
So anyway, that led to, my mom's own journey and me having a brother who was very different. And growing up. And we moved around a lot. So schools and...
How is he now?
He has a lot of...
issues?
Yeah. He's challenged. And he's been through a lot. Unfortunately, I wish the one thing my parents did would have been to let him know that he talked a lot, he talked fast, there were a lot of things that if they had just given him some tools and said,
But they didn't know they weren't equipped. It was a totally different time. I mean, we're talking...
And he was made to think he was like everybody else. And there were super challenges. And the amount of people that I pulled off my brother from bullying. And I mean, I spent a lot of years, even especially in elementary and junior high. My brother they did put him in an independent learning school, which... he then began to learn to read and function because his brain, they looked at him in a different way. And that's how he learned how to maneuver forward.
So there's
But everything he does is, if he gets involved, he used to go, he did a lot of running. He did everything obsessively. Everything became very...
Was it compulsive?
Yes, very hyper-focused. So, and talking and knowing about personal space, he got in a lot of accidents because of his visual. I mean,
and how old is he? Is he in his 50s or 60s?
Yes, he's in his 50s now.
So, obviously are focusing today so much on bringing up our children, but it's apparent that there are many adults out there that didn't get diagnosed and didn't get the services and support that they need. And I would like to reach out to everyone
Mm-hmm.
to say, what do we do about this missing faction of people who grew up in the 60s and 70s when we were all secluded and shoved behind closed doors and there wasn't inclusion? And that is entirely another pod, but I think it's a topic open for discussion. And I just learned something about you that I didn't actually know. I thought we were here to talk about Kylie, but I think it's fascinating to hear that.
Well, he has social workers now,
Oh,
and they've
good.
had to reach out to me to understand more about
Him.
him.
Thank
And
goodness they did.
yeah, and I think he was a little taken back, but I said if he were diagnosed today, he'd be on the autism spectrum.
Probably.
Oh, absolutely.
Why don't they go ahead and do an ADOS on him?
I don't know because
He might get more services.
I know, but I think it's
It's never too late.
I think it's him. He has to be willing to
Oh,
accept
for
that.
sure, without a doubt.
And he's not.
And he doesn't want to accept that he's different.
Yeah, I mean, I think he absolutely knows that, but those are the other challenges. So again, we even when we tell him things and how to present himself, it's repeated. And my brother and I are still, maneuvering, taking care of him
Are you still close? All of you?
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's
and
wonderful.
I mean, I'm here now, but even in Northern California, I mean, we definitely. It's not like every day, but actually, I do talk to my brother every day. And my other brother, yeah. So we look out for each other. I mean, both my parents are gone. So yeah, we do, and we try to support each other, and I think, and then for me, that is a dying breed that families rally.
Oh,
And
no kidding. You think?
I mean, you have no idea. I mean, and even when people can help and they don't, and I mean, then we're kind of going off on a tangent, but even for us raising Kylie, we never expected that people could take her on because it's like, well, why is she doing that? Or what's wrong? Or, it all, for us, it became, could you just make our other kids feel special? They're losing out on their parents because we have to keep up a home. Both have to work. We both don't have the luxury of making affordable incomes, especially if you live in an area where the cost of living is just astronomical anyway.
Yeah.
So make your other kids feel special. If you can't help us out with Kylie, could you take them and take them to a baseball game or take them overnight and let them watch whatever movie and let them have So anyway, that was our point, is that having people around to just rally for you.
Well,
we never had a lot of that.
I don't think a lot of families do. I think it's very rare because it's so generational on accepting people who are different or have a disability. I know my parents who have huge hearts and love. It was very challenging for them to acknowledge that their granddaughter was not perfect.
Right.
And their idea of perfect didn't include a disability. And I know they love her, but it was challenging for them. And you do focus so much time and energy on these kids with special needs. And I just want to share a little story here. I remember my son, I remember tucking him into bed, and I think he was probably in like second or third grade. And he was pissed. And he's like, you spend so much more time and attention on Elle than you do me. He's like, and you let her get away with everything. You excuse all of the things that she does that are bad, and you punish me and hold me accountable. And he's like, and it's just not fair. And I'm exhausted, and I'm tucking him in, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. It's not fair. I said, she needs more of my time and attention than you do, but it doesn't change how much I love you. And I said, but you get to do things that she will never do. You go on sleepovers at your friend's house. I let you go to the movies with your friend. I drop you off. I said, you have freedoms and independence that she will never have. And I said, so it does suck. And would you like to change places with her?
I know.
And he looked at me and he's like, no. That was the one time, the only time my son ever voiced that he felt less than cared for, or nurtured, or loved. And I apparently resolved it because he looked at me, he said, will she need to live with me someday? And of course, as a mom, you're like, heart melts and you're choking back tears.
Again, that's why we.
And I said, you know what? Oh, honey, she won't want to live with you. You know?
Yeah.
And I said, and you deserve to not be burdened with your sister. I said, you will need to be responsible for her financially when I am gone, and you'll need to make sure that she's well taken care of.
Right.
But you deserve to have a family and a life without her, having that burden on you. And that was decades ago, and now he's past it. And I'm actually kind of patting myself on the back for handling that the way I did.
That's nice.
But those aren't conversations that were had.
No.
Long, long ago.
No. And again, that's kind of where we are. My son, who was close to Kylie, even my ex would get really frustrated because I would want Douglas around if we did have a caregiver coming in, because I didn't know how they were.
You didn't trust them.
I didn't trust people, and that's a whole other segment of how many people.
What's the point of having a caregiver if you leave and you're stressed out the entire time?
So one time we had a respite person, and we came back, and Douglas said she sat on the couch and read the newspaper the whole time. She didn't,
Yeah, I found a respite provider sleeping on the couch.
And I just said, okay, well, I'll never have her back. But it used to frustrate my ex because it's like anyway, that's a whole segment.
That's a whole pod.
But anyway, so taking care of having your family, we moving here was to create a home for Kylie. Because of the affordability, and we've been researching that the services were pretty good.
And the services in Arizona are unbelievable.
Yeah, they're good. They're still challenging because of.
Well, you have to fight for it.
Yes,
you have to know how to work the system.
Yes, and I'm learning that, and I knew the system in California, and I had to fight for a lot of that.
Well, see, you should have moved across the street from me like my friend did, because she moved in and her son had autism, and I said, "Here's a book.
Yes, exactly.
Here's everything you need to do."
And we did a lot of research. So the goal for us was, if we could create a home for Kylie, because we tried supported living, we had to disillusion that because of.
Well, let's introduce Kylie a little bit.
Okay.
What's her diagnosis?
Okay. So Kylie is
when she was little.
She was diagnosed with autism.
At what age?
A little over 2.
That's young.
That's young.
And back then, I don't even know if autism was as.
It was gaining
studied
speed.
as it is today.
It was 1 in 10,000. Now
but
we're at
she have
1 in
other
66.
disabilities in addition to that?
Well, she has the sensory, but she has the heavy stuff. She very sensory, nonverbal. So she has a lot of sensory issues. She has a lot of tactile issues. She doesn't like to touch things. So
and
her
she's your
auditory
second child.
Processing, yes.
And you had 2 more daughters after
I was
Kylie.
actually pregnant with my 3rd when Kylie was diagnosed. So that emotion.
Your hormonal.
My
pregnant.
hormonal on top of that was pretty. So we had just shared this. So everyone we had. So I guess maybe what I'll do is. So after we have been to the pediatrician, he says, no, don't start judging her. Don't start. She still has time to typically pick up some stuff. Let's not go there yet. And it's funny because my husband's brother used to say, she sounds Arabic, because she used to do this ticka ticka, yeah. She used to make all these sounds that were not echolalic, or they didn't really have any sound purpose. I mean, other than sounds. Oops, excuse me.
She's hitting the mic stand.
I hit the mic. I'm making all my gestures.
She's flailing around out here, guys.
So we ended up thinking. So my husband. I said we need to take her, and I think she has an ear infection, which we went through years of that. It's very typical for autism too. So we took her in, and her pediatrician there was a doctor on call. So she checks him out, and then she asked if Douglas could take Kylie to the waiting room so he could talk to her.
She's beating up on this mic stand, guys.
The pediatrician, who was hearing impaired.
The pediatrician was hearing impaired?
Yes, but she was a wonderful woman. So she pulls my husband aside, and this is at 18 months, says, hey, there's stuff going on with Kylie. You need to have her tested. And Troy's like, the minute we heard that, she says, I'm going to get you in contact. You need to call. And the process was, a doctor says that, you go to Easter Seals. That was kind of the back then. I know there's a whole other probably, so they made an appointment for us, and that's where we went in to have her tested. And nice lady, Catherine Ross was the doctor. And I mean, Kylie did stuff. So she, and she understands things. So it's not like she's way, way out there, but she's not verbal. She's like, anyway, so she tested her, and, it came back, and they didn't want to give me that. It was getting close to Christmas, and they didn't want to give me the diagnosis. And I said,
so they had the information, but they chose not to give it to you
by the middle of
Christmas?
December. Yes. So, and I said, no, I want to know now. And they said, really? And they knew I was pregnant. And I said, I have to know. And when they told me,
the unknowing is almost as bad as the knowing.
So so we were driving home from there, and I felt like I was in the cone of silence. I was just what I meant from Get Smart. There's this cone of silence, and I'm driving in the car home with my husband, and Kylie in the back seat, like nothing's happening. She's fine. She's smiling, like nothing, and listening to Bruce Hornsby, "End of the Innocence," and it was so surreal. It was like my whole life was now just turning upside down. And now with that diagnosis, I'm thinking, I'm pregnant with another child. And what does that mean? And it was just this whole thing. I mean, we went and got genetically tested after that. And those results, my third child, Tori, was born. And genetics called me like 3 days after she was born. They didn't know, but they wanted me to. They came back and said, well, Kylie doesn't have Fragile X and nothing unordinary. And that's, again, 27 years ago.
Right.
Nothing showed up in genetically. Otherwise, they would have.
Autism isn't a genetic abnormality.
No. Only if you have like chromosomes are missing.
Correct.
Yeah. No Fragile X, nothing like that. So it was like we eliminated that.
But that fear of having another baby inside you, wondering if you're going to have to deal with Kylie.
Right. And we didn't know if it was
children.
My husband and I's genes together were creating, because we had already heard that. And we've now met families.
And isn't that a massive amount of guilt? You're procreating and creating these lives, and you don't know if you should.
And then, and it's funny because, and even when I got pregnant with my last child, who was kind of that whoops, because I was much older and didn't even, it was,
and that's Shannon,
and,
who I've met, and she's lovely.
And I was like so freaked out about being pregnant that time, because I had doctors, I've had a few doctors say to me, I said, but whether I'm not partying or whatever kind of lifestyle. I mean, I was pretty healthy. I thought. You
don't look like a big partier.
I'm not, but I mean, it's just that whole, you start thinking about everything you did in your life that might have caused this, and I've had people say, recovered a heroin addict and alcohol, have normal children. People who've been in prisoners of war, people who have been through genocide, families who have been in these traumatic situations on their body, on their health, and not being able to eat correctly or however, this is an anomaly. This is not something you did personally, but I beat myself up forever.
Well, I think you still carry that with you.
Oh, I do.
Today. And
I have to just remember, I just have to keep loving her and trying to do the best thing for her, which is, bring her some kind of joy. But we've had those experiences with our children.
But
like
you
you
also
said,
deserve joy too.
Which is what we were trying to do when we want to get her to a place so we do have more time with our other children, because our children they don't resent Kylie. They resent the amount of time it's taken away that they haven't had. and that maybe if they had an aunt or uncle who, or a grandparent or somebody who made them be there, feel
Yeah.
special. My mom died. My mom was very close to Kylie. My mom could get Kylie to do anything. And when Kylie was 10 when she died, and she died of cancer, and just after moving to Arizona, and it was very, it was very traumatic for my son too, because my son was very close to my mom. So it's just not, you have so much burden of trying to making time for all your children
You
and
had
making them.
4.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Well, my son ended up going, when my mom died, he ran away to go live with his
dad,
his biological, his dad, and which was devastating to me because I lost my mom.
And you lose your son.
Yeah. And that was pretty. And then actually at that time, my Troy had gone through having a blood clot.
That's her husband.
Had a blood clot. So I went through this, and Kylie was having complete stomach problems through all of this.
Don't you feel like at those points, you just feel like the whole freaking universe is against you?
Yeah.
Like you're being punished for something.
Yes. And then it's like, God doesn't give you more than you can handle, but I've asked him to leave my house.
Yeah, leave me alone.
I've asked him to go to somebody else for a while because
I'm
full. I can't take on anymore, and I still have to work, and I still have to function, and I still have to sleep. And Kylie has the part of this disorder that she doesn't sleep. She doesn't sleep on her own. And we've done the whole cocktail of medications, and now we're weaning her off those and trying to reintroduce anything natural, which is, it's a whirlwind. It really is.
So have you been the primary breadwinner then?
For a lot of years, yes.
So,
and Troy and I've had, we've walked away. I walked away from where he could step in, and we've juggled. We've done day jobs and night jobs and side jobs, and we both have had careers in different fields, and but I've never been able to completely immerse myself and even rise, get higher up into a position because I've always had to deal with issues.
Yeah,
and
I would have been probably a CFO of a publicly traded company by now.
I had a company. My first job, my stint of my first one was like, we're ready for you to travel and we can promote you. And I said, I can't. I have to be home. I have to get off. But because of my work ethic, and I was given so many, and people believed in me, and I did my job, and I was professional, and I could handle it. I earned the right to be able, to be the work from home at times. I could take time off, or they let me change my schedule. My husband and I worked for an insurance company at the same time, and he'd go in at 6 a.m. to get off at 2. We would juggle getting our kids between kindergarten and after school care.
And then would you go in later and work?
And I went, and then I'd take all the kids to school and then get there later.
What's the name of the insurance company?
Fireman's Fund, and it's now was bought up by Allianz, but it's not really around. Which is really devastating because it was over 130.
Hey, employers out there, you need to be nice to your people. They have shit going on at home.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing too. And as I watch younger kids coming in dealing, and I actually did a stint of a job here and watched this woman who had 3 kids in 3 age group. And my kids are so spread out that they were never in the same school.
Oh, jeez. That's a nightmare.
So,
and they're on a different schedule, different times.
And different breaks and different time frames, and trying to juggle it all. I look back and it took a toll on my health. So now it's like, if whatever you're doing in this life, however you're having to manage yourself, when people say, if you don't have your health, you have nothing, you better believe it. And your health means your sleeping, your stress, how you eat, if you don't feel right, go in and get tested. I've lost friends, and not necessarily, we've already lost friends in their 50s to cancer and other things, and it's just and it, we're so afraid that we don't get Kylie situated because we don't want our kids to be burdened with Kylie either.
And I think that's, it's such a huge
Everybody's
fear when you have a dependent that will always be your dependent.
Mhm.
And you want to outlive them. Like, I'd rather bury my daughter at a very old age than die myself and worry about, who's going to take care of her like I would. And I have this hope. I don't know if you've seen The Notebook, but when
A
the
long
two
time ago.
primary characters are in the old folks' home,
Right.
and she has
Dementia,
dementia,
right?
and she doesn't recognize him, and it might be Alzheimer's, but she finally recognizes him when he like creeps into her bed and they die like spooning next to each other. That's how I want to die, spooning with Elle.
Yeah. No, I get it. That's so our getting here and doing all this. When we got here, we thought, oh, we're just going to get a home that our in-laws had kind of tried to say, we're going to help you out. We had no idea that the journey we were going to be on, she wasn't going to be able to live with anybody. She fell apart. She's had so many medical issues. She has been toxic for so long from so much just bad nutrition. I mean, if you don't think sugar and all these things I know and I was dealing with on the autism level, and how you let doctors dictate what they don't know, and they do not care. I mean, it's not till we went to a natural path that we really feel like, and we started, and we were doing it on our
bucks. Go to
yes.
these medical schools that don't teach them anything.
No, and so we've stopped. Psychiatrists, don't even get me started on that. That's no whole nother.
But I think the thing that I noticed, I met Kylie for the first time. I don't know if I brought Elle then at that time or not.
I think it was the first time. Yes, Elle, you did bring Elle. She was very, very interested in our house and our backyard.
Yeah, she probably tore it apart and looked in all your drawers.
No.
Yeah, she probably, I'm like, don't fall in the pool. But I know that Kylie can be physically aggressive with you and Troy. And I could see the emotional impact that had on you guys. And it wasn't just the physical fear. It was just that, like, what's wrong with my daughter?
Yeah.
And I know Shannon, I think, had moved home from ASU at that time.
Yeah, Shannon was
and
going
you lived in a lot of fear.
We did. We went through we moved here and we took her to an autism clinic in UCLA about 3 months after we got here. And all they did. I was so disappointed. So anybody going out to have, they have a clinic for autism. And, it was all presented to us, you pay out of pocket, they don't take insurance. That they do an evaluation and they figure out what's the best course of action, based on their findings, and that you drop them off and we filled out all these questionnaires before we got there and what we've done and all what we've been through. And then, that they take her and they do testing and they do stuff with her and, spend time with her.
What was the point? You already knew she had autism. What else were they going to give you?
No, where could we go from here? What's happened? Last time I, went to Stanford, I think she might have been maybe 11 or 12. She was 27. We're having problems. Things are falling apart.
She's an adult.
Well, yes.
And she's human. She's an adult-sized person.
She is so freaking strong. That's the one thing. These kids are so strong, and these parents who have adult male children that have autism, like my girlfriend, I opened the door once and he had been physical on her. I don't know. It's scary. They are so strong. They are so strong. That's all they have. That's what protects them. They're when they feel like they're in fight or flight, it doesn't matter. It's, anyway, so.
And I think the thing that I noticed is that, Troy's decided to stay at home and you're trying to work but you need flexibility.
Right.
And you have nowhere for her to go during the day.
No.
So you guys are with her
So we
24
yes.
7, and you looked at all the different places that could provide services, and she was turned away.
Well, it wasn't because what happened was, so we did the whole UCLA thing. It didn't
waste of money, waste of time.
Yes, because I mean, they even said that they'll be that we were told 3 days they'll be responsible. We come back and they'll do like a summation of what they've come up with. We literally left Kylie for a half hour, and they asked us to come back.
Do they still charge you?
And they wanted us to kind of hang out and be closer. So here, Troy and I are going to go off and just have a cup of coffee and do a little more paper, a little more questionnaires. While they didn't know what to do with her. It's like, you're running a clinic for autistic people, and you don't know what to do with her.
How are we supposed to know that as parents who
and
aren't
you don't know how to take her for a walk?
Trained.
So these people were inequipped to do it. I actually was talking to the clinician, and they had these 2 younger girls who were studying to be a part of psychology. I mean, that's what they were there for, their degree. And they walked in the room and told me they think she needs to go to the bathroom. Okay.
Send her to the bathroom.
Take her to the friggin' bathroom. Are you like 5? What?
Well, I mean, I think it's apparent that studying is not the same as experience.
I know, but a grown woman who and Kylie's intimidating. That's the one thing.
She does not understand personal space or boundaries. She gets very close to me.
No, she does. And not only that, if she thinks she can manipulate you, or if she can intimidate you, she's got the upper hand, and she knows it, and she'll throw her weight around just to do it. But people who know how to do the dance, hey, Kai,
redirect.
Let's do this. Yeah.
Right.
And hey, personal space. Oh, you can give me a high five, but I don't want, not that, you have to use a positive spin. So I've seen people work really well with Kylie. And then I've seen people go, oh my God, I'm freaking out. And it's like, and I have to tell people when I do get services, because I've had young OTs and young speech therapists. And I said, do not send me somebody who just finished school who's younger than Kylie. Because Kylie knows it. And she's going to take you to town.
And they can smell the fear in those therapists.
Kylie, my son who's older, Kylie will do anything for him. Kylie and Douglas have a different bond. If my younger 2 daughters tried to get Kylie to do something, there is no way it's happening. So it's a completely different dynamic.
Well, and I think it's really important for the institutions that offer programs that provide the teachings to these therapists. I have fired so many speech therapists for Elle because they sit there and they're like, well, she won't listen to me, or she won't do what I say, and she's a ill-behaved child. And I'm like, you know what? None of her other therapists on the team have an issue. I said, the problem is that you don't have behavior training. I said, you're dealing with the behavior, and you should just be at a typical school teaching kids how to pronounce their S's and R's.
Yes.
And I think that's a real shame that you go and get your master's in speech therapy and they don't teach you some sort of applied behavioral analysis or anything. Because I'm like, you expect this child to sit still and repeat back, stuff that you're saying to them. And again, this was years ago, and maybe today it's better.
No, it's not.
But I have fired so many people because they're like, well, it's your kid. And you know what? That's the worst thing is I'm like, oh, you really want to poke the mama bear? You're going to tell me it's my kid? You don't say that to a mother.
But it's your job.
And
catch a clue.
You're going to open up a can of crazy here if you tell me, oh, it's my kid's problem.
Not only that, you get these services, and it's like, I'm telling you up front, send somebody mature, send somebody who's knows the weather.
Commands respect.
And understands that we're dealing with if you don't know about autism and you're being thrown into doing OT or speech with an autistic person,
you're in the wrong field.
Yeah. I mean,
you need to go and help stroke victims or,
Right.
you know.
Pick a lane,
Yeah.
but you not because we had an OT who came in and she sweet, but so if Kylie grabbed her while she was doing, she got to the point where she was so rattled, and it's like you're young and you already have a child of your own, and you're coming to work and you're this. This is not the person for you to be. Kylie's not the person for you, and we actually let her out. She wanted to be successful with Kylie, but we just said this is too much for you, and we pulled the plug for her and said we'll find somebody else because it was just, and she was younger, and you could tell she was getting snippety with Kylie, and not purposely. She was just, there was exhaustion because she didn't know how to deal with it because it was too. And again, we deal with that. But you
this
get
is
an
their
older
job
person.
that they're getting paid for, and you and I aren't getting paid for any of this.
I know, but we're responsible.
We're getting
for,
punished.
No, and it's you take on all the crap, and technically, since she's been 18, she's not my responsibility by law. She's an adult. So who's picking up the slack? Nobody. They're asking me to still filter everything. You have to be the one to be the conduit to make everything happen. And it's like, yeah, but you're sending me. And I kept telling them, don't give me a speech therapist who really doesn't know who she is yet. I mean, I was getting one girl who really just wanted to be in the school system, and she was showing up, and she was always late, and it's like, I'm not doing this anymore. This is exhausting. It's, yeah, I can appreciate it, but there's a dynamic out there, and forget it, because I am telling you, you can go work at In-N-Out Burger for $10 an hour, and you're making the same money to come work with my daughter. That's absurd.
I have
the pay for what you have to do, and behaviors. If you have, people who throw their weight around. I mean, Kylie's nonverbal. She has to be able to tell you something, and we're trying to give her tools, but you got to be patient. Anyway, you came when Kylie was she was at her height of aggression when I met with you. We went through a point where and we believe it was the toxicity. First of all, her diet, the huge amount of stomach problems she had. She was constantly getting urinary tract infections. We had her ovaries taken out because they had cysts on them, and her periods were awful. I mean, we've just been through the gamut of cleaning her up and making her healthy, because most of what she's going through those are her behaviors. And she's been in pain.
Food is a huge trigger. But
she has these where she limps a lot, and it's that, she's got that, I forget, now it's passed me by, but.
It'll come back to you.
Yes. Anyway, she has all these medical, but it's all related to pain and not feeling good. So I remember I had to go, and when I was doing a contract job, I had to go out and buy shirts and it's warm here, but I had to go buy shirts that covered my arms, and my
from bruises?
Troy did not want to leave me alone with her for very long, because
by the way, Trisha is like this super petite little lady. So she can, it probably looks like your husband beats you, but.
Well, it's very embarrassing, because I can even remember Kylie never grabbed hard, but when we started to do and change things here for her, all of a sudden, I remember her grabbing me once, and it was so painful, and it hurt so bad, and it was, I felt like she was telling me, I can't stand it anymore. It finally was a breakthrough. Instead of me being mad at her, I was mad. I was just mad that we've allowed it got to this point, that no one was helping out. And I want you to know, I have called, rehab facilities where you go and have you detox and you get yourself or cleaned out, which is $30,000 for a month. Everybody knows how much rehabs are. I couldn't find anybody to take her and help us, because she's nonverbal. She needs 24/7 care. She's not going to go do yoga. She's not going to go do therapy. But we couldn't do it alone. So for the last 2.5 years, we've been a care facility, a rehab facility, and trying to create a safe haven to correct all the things that have gone wrong because we allowed too much medications and lack of diet and all these things that have just sort of exploded.
So you have guilt.
Yeah, because financially we're to the, all the savings is gone. We need to get jobs. We are to the point where when we know one of us, neither one could be left alone with her for long periods of time because it was so exhausting. She rarely, we're still weaning her off medication. We've gotten all this testing done, so all the stomach stuff is really now trying to change. She needed dental work. So between her ovaries, her dental work, I mean, her brain has been on, and everybody wanted us to do is just keep putting her on medication, which was just masking
Right.
all the behaviors
Right.
of all this other crap that
Right.
was going on.
Medication, I think, is for medical issues.
Yes.
And a lot of these things are neurological issues.
Yes. And biological. And the thing is what happens is because doctors, it's that quick fix. Well, we'll just put her on this.
Right.
Well, there was stuff that we were giving to Kylie. Kylie started handing it back to us. Like, I'm not taking that. It doesn't make me feel right. So we've gone the whole CBD route. We're still working on it. We're still weaning. We found out all the things that she is completely deficient in through all the oat testing. Test your kid for oats. Test them for food allergies. Do all that because what's the underlying behaviors from? It's because she doesn't feel good. When we don't feel good, we act out. There's nothing else. And she has no other way to tell us.
And typical humans at least have a
verbal
filter
yes.
to realize that they need to hold it all in. But at some point, we all have to let it out.
Yes.
So we are going to continue our dialogue and our
Yes.
conversation in another podcast. I know this has been a long one.
This has.
And
I appreciate
and
it.
there's a lot to cover, and you are going to hear more from Trisha. But to all of you out there, I hope that you know that there is an army of people out here like us, our warrior unicorn parents, and she's just flipping pages. Yeah, this is a super professional environment, guys. But I'm just so happy that any of you are listening, and maybe there's only 1, 2, or 3 of you, but whoop whoop to you all out there.
Yes, and if I can add anything, it's take care of yourselves, stay healthy, just keep it all together and know that you're doing the right thing, because doing the right thing is always the hardest, and people want you to just take an easy road out. We've been told to give our child up to the state, and there's no way in God's green earth my husband and I will ever do that. But like my husband and I have talked about over the years is you can't help other people unless you put the oxygen mask on yourself. You know how they tell you that when you're airplane, put the oxygen on before you give it, before you help somebody else. And that's what we've been trying to do here is get that oxygen mask on. We've been on this journey that we're trying to turn things around, and please keep your health. Please, whatever you can do to keep your sanity, and know that, you're God's gift to your child. And don't give up.
There you go, parents. Put your oxygen mask on. This is Jen.